For generations, the galactic community had basked in an unprecedented era of peace and prosperity. Stark differences in biology, culture, and technology had once fueled endless conflicts, but over the centuries, the dominant species had forged alliances, cultivated trade networks, and coexisted in relative harmony. The Voth, a technologically advanced reptilian race, presided over a vast interstellar empire, maintaining order and stability through a combination of diplomatic finesse and military might. The Andorians, a humanoid species renowned for their artistic achievements, had become the cultural heart of the galaxy, their opulent cities drawing visitors from across the stars. Even the Gorn, a notoriously bellicose species, had tempered their warlike ways, channeling their aggression into rigorous sporting competitions that captivated audiences galaxy-wide. Beneath the veneer of unity, however, a sense of unease lingered. For amidst this tranquil landscape, the denizens of the so-called Deathworld planets remained a mystery to their neighbors. Their peculiar customs, strange physiology, and rumored military prowess, the subject of endless speculation and cautious avoidance. Chief among these enigmatic Deathworlders were the humans, a bipedal species hailing from the lush yet perilous confines of their home planet. While the other dominant races had long since abandoned the confines of their home systems, the humans had only recently ventured out into the stars, their sudden emergence a source of both fascination and apprehension. They are a fierce and unforgiving species. These humans, the Vulcan ambassador Soluk mused during a closed-door session of the Galactic Council. Their homeworld is a cauldron of violent weather, deadly predators, and intense competition for scarce resources. It is a wonder they have survived at all, let alone develop the technology to reach out beyond their sphere of influence. The Andorian representative, Shraz, nodded solemnly. Indeed, their resilience and adaptability are remarkable, yet deeply unsettling. They seem to thrive in the face of adversity, a quality that has served them well in their rise to prominence. I cannot help but wonder what other unexpected capabilities they might possess. A hush fell over the chamber as the delegates considered the implications, for while the humans had thus far proven to be valuable trading partners and surprisingly adept diplomats, their very nature as denizens of a Deathworld planet, a class of worlds renowned for their propensity to birth fearsome, hyper-evolved life forms, gave them an air of unpredictability and potential danger. "We must proceed with caution," intoned the Voth Empress, her reptilian features betraying no emotion. "The humans have demonstrated a willingness to cooperate, even to share their technological innovations with us. But we cannot forget that they are, at their core, a product of the harshest environment imaginable. Their kindness and goodwill may one day give way to a more primal, uncompromising nature." The other delegates murmured in agreement, their expressions grave. The Galactic Council had weathered countless crises over the millennia, but the prospect of confronting a species born of a Deathworld, with all its implied ferocity and ruthlessness, filled them with a sense of foreboding. Yet, even as they contemplated the potential threats the humans pose, there was a nagging curiosity that refused to be extinguished. For amidst the unease, a glimmer of fascination shone through. What else might these Deathworlders be capable of? What untapped wonders or terrors lay dormant within their ranks? In the end, the Galactic Council resolved to maintain a watchful eye on the humans, their diplomatic overtures and economic ventures carefully monitored for any signs of duplicity or aggression. The Deathworlders would be welcomed as trading partners and allies, but never truly trusted, not until they had proven themselves beyond all doubt to be worthy of the galaxy's faith. And so the uneasy coexistence persisted, the dominant species content to bask in their hard-won era of peace, even as the shadow of the unknown loomed large over their collective future. Little did they know that the calm they had grown so accustomed to was about to be shattered, plunging the galaxy into a cataclysmic struggle that would test the limits of their alliances and the true nature of the Deathworlders. Despite the unease that permeated the galactic community's perception of the humans, the Deathworlders had, over the course of the preceding decades, managed to shatter many preconceptions about their kind. Rather than the savage, unyielding species the other dominant races had envisioned, the humans proved to be surprisingly adept at navigating the intricate web of interstellar diplomacy and commerce. Leading this charge was the charismatic Terran ambassador, Sarah Khan. A seasoned negotiator with a keen intellect and an innate understanding of alien cultures, Khan had quickly become a respected figure within the Galactic Council chambers. Her earnest demeanor and genuine empathy had earned her the trust and admiration of her peers, who were often taken aback by the Deathworlders' willingness to compromise and her genuine interest in forging mutually beneficial partnerships. The humans are not the mindless brutes we had been led to believe, Shraz, the Andorian representative, admitted during a private conversation with the Voth Empress. Ambassador Khan has demonstrated a level of civility and foresight that is quite remarkable, given the reputation of her species. The Voth Empress nodded slowly, her reptilian gaze betraying a hint of begrudging respect. Indeed, the humans have proven themselves to be worthy trading partners and valuable allies. Their technological innovations have been a boon to our economic endeavors, and their diplomatic overtures have fostered newfound goodwill between our peoples. As the humans continued to integrate themselves into the galactic community, their reputation only grew. Khan and her colleagues became sought-after mediators, their unique perspective and problem-solving abilities often instrumental in resolving tense standoffs between rival factions. Likewise, human traders were welcomed with open arms, their ships ferrying precious resources and exotic goods across the stars. But it was the humans' willingness to share their own technological advancements that truly cemented their place as respected members of the galactic community. From breakthroughs in energy generation and interstellar propulsion to cutting-edge medical treatments and automated manufacturing techniques, the Deathworlders proved themselves to be innovative pioneers, freely offering their hard-won knowledge to their alien counterparts. The humans are unlike any species we have encountered, mused the Vulcan ambassador, Solok, during a private audience with the Terran delegation. Your eagerness to collaborate and your desire to uplift other civilizations is a remarkable trait, one that is not often found among the dominant powers of the galaxy. Khan offered the Vulcan a warm smile, her dark eyes radiating a genuine sincerity. We understand the value of cooperation, Ambassador Solok. Our own history is fraught with conflict, but we have learned that true progress can only be achieved through the sharing of knowledge and the building of lasting partnerships. It is our hope that by working together, we can create a future of prosperity and peace for all. The Vulcan's brow furrowed slightly, betraying a hint of contemplation. And yet, we cannot ignore the underlying nature of your species, Ambassador Khan. The death world from which you hail is a harsh and unforgiving place, home to countless dangerous life forms that have doubtlessly forged your people's formidable capabilities. How can we be certain that this innate ferocity will not one day resurface, threatening the delicate balance we have worked so hard to maintain? Khan's expression remained serene, betraying none of the trepidation that the Vulcan's words had evoked. I understand your concerns, Ambassador. The humans, like all sentient beings, are products of our environment and our history. But I can assure you that the kindness and cooperation you have witnessed are not mere facades. They are a fundamental part of who we are, a testament to our resilience and our desire to forge a better future for all. The Vulcan nodded slowly, his gaze never leaving Khan's face. Time will be the true test of your sincerity, Ambassador. For now, we shall continue to welcome your people with open arms, in the hopes that your kindness will indeed prove to be the defining trait of your species. But should that kindness ever falter, the consequences could be dire for us all. As the Vulcan departed, Khan let out a quiet sigh, her composure betraying a momentary hint of unease. The doubts and suspicions that lingered within the galactic community were not unfounded, and she knew that the humans' place within this delicate ecosystem remained precarious. Yet, even as the shadow of uncertainty loomed, Khan remained steadfast in her conviction. The humans had come too far, worked too hard to forge these vital alliances, to allow the fears of their neighbors to undermine all they had accomplished. With renewed determination, she turned her attention to the next round of negotiations, resolute in her mission to continue strengthening the bonds between her people and the other dominant races of the galaxy. For as long as the humans maintained their spirit of cooperation and goodwill, she believed the galaxy would have nothing to fear from the Deathworlders. But deep within, Khan could not help but wonder, what would happen if that kindness were to one day be forsaken? The tranquility of the galaxy had lulled the dominant species into a false sense of security, their vigilance gradually waning as the years of peace stretched on. But that complacency was about to be shattered in the most horrific of ways. It began with a series of unsettling reports trickling in from the far-flung reaches of explored space. Isolated outposts and colonies had simply vanished without a trace, leaving behind only eerie silence. Desperate distress calls went unanswered, and those few survivors who managed to escape the affected regions spoke of a malevolent, unstoppable force that consumed everything in its path. Panic began to spread like wildfire as the Galactic Council convened an emergency session, its members grappling with the implications of this new and terrifying threat. Theories abounded. Was it the work of a previously unknown alien civilization, an ancient technological scourge now reawakened, or perhaps even the result of some cataclysmic natural phenomenon? "We must act swiftly to contain this threat before it consumes us all," bellowed the Gorn representative, his reptilian features twisted in a rare display of alarm. "Send in our fleets, unleash our most devastating weapons. We cannot afford to let this menace spread any further." But the Voth Empress raised a clawed hand, silencing the chamber with a gesture. "Patience, my friend. We must first understand the nature of this enemy before we can hope to defeat it. Rushing headlong into battle without a clear strategy would be a grave mistake." Solok, the Vulcan ambassador, nodded in agreement. "The Empress speaks wisely. This foe has thus far proven itself to be elusive and formidable. We must gather more intelligence, study its patterns and weaknesses, before committing our forces to an engagement we may not be prepared to win." As the debate raged on, the scale of the crisis only continued to grow. Entire star systems had been wiped off the galactic map, their populations vanishing without a trace. The Andorian homeworld had been isolated, its lines of communication severed, leaving the Galactic Council to fear the worst. It was then that the humans, once mere observers in the Council's deliberations, stepped forward with a proposal that would forever alter the course of the galaxy. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Ambassador Khan began, her voice steady and unwavering. "We have been monitoring the situation with grave concern. The threat you face is unlike anything you have encountered before. An entity of pure, unyielding destruction that cares not for your advanced technology or your military might." The other delegates listened in tense silence as Khan outlined her plan. A daring mission to infiltrate the heart of the devastated regions, to gather vital intelligence that could unlock the key to defeating this mysterious foe. And for this task, she argued, the humans were uniquely qualified. "We are a product of a death world, a planet that has forged us to be resilient, adaptable, and uncompromising in the face of adversity," Khan said, her gaze sweeping across the gathered representatives. "Our skills in stealth, survival, and combat are unmatched, honed by millennia of struggle against the harshest of environments. Where your fleets would be vulnerable, we can slip past undetected and return with the knowledge you need to turn the tide of this battle." The Galactic Council erupted into a cacophony of protests and objections, the delegates aghast at the notion of entrusting such a critical mission to the unpredictable Deathworlders. But Khan remained steadfast, her arguments bolstered by a growing sense of desperation within the chamber. "You have no other choice," she said, her voice cutting through the discord. "This threat consumes everything in its path, and your existing strategies have proven ineffective. If we do not act now, the very fabric of our civilization will be torn asunder. The humans are your best, and perhaps only, hope." Reluctantly, the Galactic Council conceded to Khan's proposal, their faces etched with a mixture of trepidation and resignation. The humans would be granted the autonomy and resources they demanded, and in return, they would undertake the perilous mission to uncover the truth behind the mysterious entity that threatened to destroy them all. As the delegates dispersed, their expressions grim, the Voth Empress turned to Solok, her scaled brow furrowed in deep contemplation. "The humans have always been an enigma to us, Solok," she murmured, her eyes following Khan's retreating form. "Their potential for both great good and unimaginable destruction has always been a source of unease. Now we must place our faith in their hands and pray that their kindness and cooperation will not be as fleeting as the peace we have grown accustomed to." Solok nodded, his own concerns etched upon his features. "Indeed, Empress, the fate of the galaxy now rests upon the shoulders of the Deathworlders. Let us hope that their resilience and ingenuity will prove to be our salvation, and not our undoing." With a heavy heart, the Galactic Council braced itself for the uncertain days ahead, their once tranquil domain now teetering on the edge of oblivion. The humans had been entrusted with a monumental task, and the stakes had never been higher. For if they should fail, the consequences would be unthinkable. As the Galactic Council's emergency session drew to a close, a palpable sense of dread hung in the air. The dominant species had faced countless crises over the millennia, but the threat that now loomed on the horizon was unlike anything they had ever encountered. With entire star systems vanishing without a trace and the Andorian homeworld isolated, the galaxy teetered on the precipice of catastrophe, and in their hour of greatest need, the Council found themselves turning to the one species they had long viewed with a mixture of fascination and trepidation: the Deathworlders, the humans. Ambassador Sara Khan stood tall, her features etched with determination as she addressed the gathered delegates. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, I understand your hesitation in entrusting this critical mission to my people. The humans, after all, are an enigma to you, a species forged by the harshest of environments, whose true nature and capabilities remain shrouded in uncertainty." The Voth Empress nodded solemnly, her reptilian gaze never wavering from Khan's face. "Your words ring true, Ambassador. We have long marveled at the resilience and adaptability of the Deathworlders, yet we cannot ignore the potential dangers that your kind may pose. How can we be certain that your assistance will not come at a price too great for the galaxy to bear?" Khan took a measured breath, her composure unwavering in the face of the Empress's probing inquiry. "I understand your concerns, and they are not without merit. The humans are, indeed, a product of a world that has forged us to be unyielding in the face of adversity. But I stand before you today to assure you that our kindness and our desire to forge lasting partnerships are not mere facades. They are the very core of who we are." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the tense faces of the council members. "We have learned, through countless trials and tribulations, that true strength lies not in domination, but in cooperation. The humans have seen the consequences of unbridled aggression, and we have chosen a different path, one of mutual understanding and shared prosperity." The Andorian representative, Shras, leaned forward, his antennae twitching with a mixture of hope and skepticism. "And yet, Ambassador, your people have only recently emerged from the confines of your homeworld. How can we be certain that this newfound spirit of cooperation will not be as fleeting as the peace we have enjoyed for so long?" Khan met Shraz's gaze unflinchingly. "I cannot provide you with absolute guarantees, honored counselor. The humans are a complex and ever-evolving species, shaped by the varied forces that have made our world a death world. But I can promise you this: if you entrust us with this mission, we will give our all to ensure its success. For the sake of the galaxy we have come to cherish, we will not falter." Silence settled over the chamber as the delegates contemplated Khan's words, their expressions torn between hope and trepidation. The fate of their civilizations hung in the balance, and they had no choice but to place their trust in the unpredictable Deathworlders. Finally, the Voth Empress raised a clawed hand, commanding the attention of the room. "Ambassador Khan, on behalf of the Galactic Council, we accept your proposal. The humans will be granted the autonomy and resources they require to undertake this perilous mission. We can only pray that your kindness and your resolve will prove strong enough to guide us through this darkest of hours." Khan bowed her head, a flicker of relief crossing her features. "You have my word, Empress, and the word of the human people. We will not rest until we have uncovered the truth behind this threat and discovered a means to defend our shared future." As the council members filed out of the chamber, their faces etched with a mixture of uncertainty and cautious optimism, Khan turned to her delegation, her expression hardening with resolve. "The time has come, my friends, to show the galaxy the true strength of the Deathworlders. We have been entrusted with a monumental task, one that will test the very limits of our capabilities. But I have no doubt that we are up to the challenge." Her gaze swept across the faces of her fellow humans, each one reflecting the same steely determination that burned within her. "We will venture into the unknown, confront this enemy head-on, and return with the knowledge that will ensure the salvation of the galaxy. For too long, our kindness has been viewed as a weakness. Now we will prove that it is our greatest strength." With a nod, Khan turned and strode from the chamber, her steps filled with purpose. The other delegates watched her go, their expressions a mix of trepidation and cautious hope. The fate of the galaxy now rested squarely upon the shoulders of the Deathworlders, and the galaxy could only pray that their faith in the humans was not misplaced. As the hours ticked by, the Galactic Council found themselves consumed by a sense of anxious anticipation, their thoughts consumed by the perilous mission that had been entrusted to their erstwhile allies. For the first time in generations, the future of their civilizations hung by a thread, and the only hope they had left was the resolve of the enigmatic Deathworlders. The air in the Galactic Council's chamber was thick with tension as the delegates digested the startling ultimatum put forth by the human ambassador, Sarah Khan. In their hour of greatest need, the dominant species had turned to the Deathworlders for salvation, only to be confronted with a demand that shook the very foundation of their interstellar cooperation. Khan stood tall, her gaze unwavering as the outraged protests erupted around her. "Absolute autonomy and decisive control," bellowed the Gorn representative, his scaled features contorted in a mask of fury. "You presume to dictate the terms of our own defense." The Voth Empress raised a clawed hand, silencing the chamber with a gesture. "Ambassador Khan, your request is highly unorthodox and speaks to a level of trust that we have yet to fully establish with your people. Surely, you must understand our hesitation to cede such critical authority to the Deathworlders, given the uncertainties that have long surrounded your species." Khan inclined her head, her expression calm and measured. "I understand your concerns, Empress, and I do not make this request lightly. But the stakes we now face are unlike anything the galaxy has ever confronted. This threat consumes everything in its path, and your existing strategies have proven woefully inadequate. If we are to have any hope of turning the tide, we must be granted the freedom to act as we see fit." The Andorian representative, Shras, leaned forward, his antennae twitching with a mixture of disbelief and apprehension. "And what assurances can you provide, Ambassador, that your people will not abuse this power? That your kindness and cooperation will not be as fleeting as the peace we have known?" Khan's gaze hardened, a steely resolve flashing in her eyes. "I cannot offer you absolute guarantees, Counselor Shras. The humans are a complex species, forged by the harsh realities of our Deathworld home. But I can promise you this: if you entrust us with this mission, we will dedicate every ounce of our being to ensuring its success. The fate of the galaxy is at stake, and we will not falter in our duty to protect it." The delegates exchanged uneasy glances, their expressions etched with a mix of trepidation and desperation. The threat that loomed before them was unlike anything they had ever faced, and the thought of ceding such critical authority to the unpredictable Deathworlders filled them with a deep sense of unease. Yet, as the seconds ticked by, a grim realization began to dawn. They had no other choice. The humans, with their vaunted resilience and formidable capabilities, were their only hope of defeating this unstoppable force. To refuse Khan's ultimatum would be to condemn the galaxy to certain annihilation. The Voth Empress slowly rose from her seat, her reptilian features etched with a profound sense of resignation. Ambassador Khan, on behalf of the Galactic Council, we accept your terms. The humans will be granted the autonomy and control you have demanded, with the understanding that your actions will be solely focused on the defeat of this common enemy. Khan's shoulders squared, a hint of triumph flashing across her features. You have my word, Empress, and the word of the human people. We will not rest until this threat has been eliminated, and the galaxy has been secured. As the delegates filed out of the chamber, their faces heavy with the weight of their decision, Khan turned to her fellow humans, her expression steely with purpose. The time has come, my friends, to show the galaxy the true power of the Deathworlders. We have been entrusted with a monumental task, one that will test the very limits of our capabilities. But I have no doubt that we are more than equal to the challenge. Her gaze swept across the faces of her compatriots, each one reflecting the same unwavering determination that burned within her. We will venture into the unknown, confront this enemy head-on, and emerge victorious. For too long, our kindness has been seen as a weakness. Now, we will prove that it is our greatest strength. With a nod, Khan turned and strode from the chamber, her steps filled with purpose. The other delegates watched her go, their expressions a mix of trepidation and cautious hope. The fate of the galaxy now rested squarely upon the shoulders of the Deathworlders, and the dominant species could only pray that their faith in the humans was not misplaced. As the hours ticked by, the Galactic Council found themselves consumed by a sense of anxious anticipation, their thoughts consumed by the perilous mission that had been entrusted to their erstwhile allies. For the first time in generations, the future of their civilizations hung by a thread, and the only hope they had left was the resolve of the enigmatic Deathworlders. In the darkest corners of the galaxy, the mysterious entity that had sparked this crisis continued its relentless advance, consuming world after world with an insatiable hunger. The dominant species, once so secure in their prosperity, now watched in helpless horror as their carefully constructed order crumbled before their eyes. And as the days passed, a sense of foreboding began to take root, a nagging doubt that perhaps, in their desperation, the Galactic Council had placed their trust in the wrong hands. For the Deathworlders, with their uncompromising nature and their capacity for both great good and unimaginable destruction, were an unknown quantity, a wild card that could tilt the scales of the galaxy's fate in ways none could predict. As the beleaguered Galactic Council watched with bated breath, the human forces led by Ambassador Sara Khan launched their counterattack against the relentless entity that threatened to consume the galaxy. The Deathworlders, granted the autonomy and control they had demanded, brought to bear the full might of their resilience and strategic prowess. The initial battles were fierce and brutal, the human ships darting through the void with unparalleled speed and agility, their weapons inflicting devastating damage upon the enemy's seemingly impenetrable defenses. The other species, their own fleets struggling to keep pace, could only look on in a mix of awe and trepidation as the Deathworlders systematically carved a path through the devastation. But as the conflict raged on, a growing sense of unease began to take hold among the Galactic Council members, for it soon became clear that the humans were not merely defending their allies, they were actively and ruthlessly eliminating any species they deemed unfit or unworthy of survival. The Gorn representative, his scales pulsing with a barely contained fury, slammed his fist upon the conference table. This is an outrage. The humans have betrayed our trust, turning their weapons against our own people. We must intervene immediately and put an end to this madness. The Voth Empress raised a clawed hand, her reptilian features betraying a rare glimpse of emotion. Patience, counselor. We must understand the full scope of the humans' actions before we take any hasty measures. Their tactics, while disturbing, may be a necessary evil in the face of this unprecedented threat. Solok, the Vulcan ambassador, inclined his head, his expression inscrutable. The Empress is correct. We cannot ignore the fact that the Deathworlders have thus far proven to be our most effective line of defense against the entity's advance. To interfere now could jeopardize the very salvation we seek." Shrez, the Andorian representative, shook his head, his antennae twitching with a mixture of anger and dismay. "But at what cost, Solak? Already we have received reports of entire species being wiped out by the human's hand. How many more lives will be sacrificed before this conflict is resolved?" The chamber fell silent, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily upon the delegates. They had entrusted the fate of the galaxy to the Deathworlders, placing their faith in the humans' professed kindness and cooperation. Yet, as the reports of their ruthless actions continued to filter in, that trust was quickly eroding, replaced by a growing sense of horror and betrayal. It was then that Ambassador Khan appeared before the Council, her expression grim but resolute. "Honored members of the Galactic Council, I understand your concerns, and I do not take the actions of my people lightly. But I implore you to understand the stakes we now face." She paused, her gaze sweeping across the tense faces of the delegates. "This entity we confront is unlike anything we have ever encountered. A force of pure, unyielding destruction that cares not for the lives it consumes. To defeat it, we must be willing to make the difficult choices, to sacrifice that which is necessary for the greater good." The Gorn representative let out a menacing growl. "And who are you to decide what is necessary for our survival, Deathworlder? Your people have gone rogue, betraying the very principles of cooperation and mutual understanding that we have strived to uphold for generations." Khan's expression remained impassive, her voice unwavering. "I do not deny the severity of our actions, Counselor, but I ask you to consider the alternative. A galaxy reduced to ashes, with no one left to bear witness to our shared history. The humans are the only ones who can stand against this threat, and we will do whatever it takes to ensure its defeat." The Voth Empress leaned forward, her reptilian eyes narrowing. "And what precisely constitutes whatever it takes, Ambassador Khan? Your people have already eliminated entire civilizations in the name of this crusade. How many more lives will you deem expendable before the galaxy is saved?" Khan's gaze hardened, her features etched with an unwavering resolve. "I cannot provide you with a simple answer, Empress. The decisions we have made, and the actions we have taken, have been born out of desperation and a steadfast determination to protect all that we hold dear. But I can assure you that the humans have not, and will not, act without purpose. Every choice, every sacrifice, has been made with the sole intent of ensuring the survival of the galaxy." The delegates exchanged uneasy glances, their expressions a mix of outrage, fear, and a growing sense of helplessness. The Deathworlders, once hailed as their saviors, had now become the arbiters of a galactic purge, their kindness and cooperation replaced by a ruthless, uncompromising agenda that threatened to tear the very fabric of their civilization asunder. As the reports of the humans' actions continued to filter in, the Galactic Council found themselves torn between their trust in the Deathworlders and their growing revulsion at the price they were willing to pay for victory. The galaxy hung in the balance, its fate resting precariously upon the whims of the enigmatic and increasingly unpredictable species that now held the reins of power. And deep within the heart of the conflict, the human forces pressed on, their resolve unshaken, their actions driven by a singular, all-consuming purpose: to defeat the entity that threatened to consume everything in its path, no matter the cost. The aftermath of the human-led campaign against the devastating entity that had threatened to consume the galaxy was a scene of both relief and profound unease. While the immediate threat had been vanquished, the Galactic Council found itself grappling with the stark reality that the Deathworlders had now established a new order, one in which they were the undisputed masters. As the human ships returned from the final decisive battle, their hulls scared but their crews triumphant, Ambassador Sara Khan strode into the council chambers, her expression unreadable. The delegates, once her allies, now eyed her with a mixture of trepidation and grudging respect. "Honored members of the Galactic Council," Khan began, her voice carrying a tone of authority that had never been present before. "I come before you today to inform you that the threat to our shared existence has been eliminated. The entity has been destroyed, and the galaxy has been secured." The Voth Empress inclined her head, her reptilian features betraying a hint of resignation. "We are grateful for the sacrifices your people have made, Ambassador Khan. The galaxy owes the humans a debt of gratitude that can never be repaid." Khan's eyes narrowed, and a subtle shift in her demeanor sent a palpable unease through the chamber. "Indeed, Empress, and it is precisely because of that debt that the humans have laid claim to the mantle of leadership in the new galactic order." Shrez, the Andorian representative, rose from his seat, his antennae twitching with a mixture of disbelief and outrage. "You cannot be serious, Ambassador. The Galactic Council has stood as the governing authority for generations. How dare you presume to usurp our rightful place?" Khan's gaze remained unwavering. "I assure you, Councillor Shrez, that this is no mere presumption. The humans have earned the right to leave the galaxy through the blood and sacrifice of our people. We have proven ourselves to be the only ones capable of confronting and defeating the most dire of threats." The Gorn representative let out a menacing growl. "And what of the price we have paid, Deathworlder? The lives of countless species snuffed out by your people's ruthless campaign. How can you possibly justify such devastation in the name of your self-proclaimed leadership?" Khan's expression hardened, her voice taking on a steely edge. "The decisions we made were not made lightly, Counselor, but they were necessary to protect the greater good, to ensure the very survival of the galaxy. Some sacrifices were unavoidable, and we mourn the loss of those who perished. But their deaths will not have been in vain, for the humans will now guide the galaxy towards a new era of prosperity and security." The delegates erupted into a cacophony of protests and objections, their cries echoing through the chamber. But Khan raised a hand, silencing them with a gesture. "This is not a negotiation, honored members of the Council. The humans have spoken, and our words carry the weight of our victory. From this day forward, the Galactic Council will be dissolved, and the human dominion will assume full control over the governance and defense of the galaxy." The Voth Empress, her reptilian features etched with a profound sense of resignation, rose from her seat. "And if we refuse to submit to your rule, Ambassador Khan," Khan's gaze never wavered, "then you will be met with the full force of the human military. We have proven our capabilities in the face of the gravest of threats, and we will not hesitate to do so again, if necessary." The chamber fell silent, the delegates grappling with the reality of their new circumstances. The once vibrant and collaborative Galactic Council had been reduced to mere vassals, their hard-won autonomy and influence now crushed beneath the heel of the Deathworlders. As the days turned to weeks, the transition to the human dominion was a turbulent one. Riots and protests erupted across the galaxy as the other species struggled to come to terms with their newfound subjugation. But the human forces, led by Khan and her unwavering commanders, swiftly and ruthlessly quelled any sign of dissent, cementing their control over the once prosperous interstellar civilization. The vibrant cultures and thriving economies of the past were reduced to shadows of their former selves, as the human dominion imposed its own stringent policies and regulations. The free exchange of ideas and the pursuit of individual prosperity were sacrificed in the name of stability and uniformity, a grim trade-off that the conquered species were forced to accept, lest they face the wrath of their new overlords. In the darkest corners of the galaxy, whispers of resistance began to take root as the once allied civilizations came to terms with the harsh reality of their new circumstances. They had placed their trust in the Deathworlders, only to be betrayed and subjugated, their fates now inextricably bound to the whims of the humans and their relentless ambition. And as the human dominion tightened its grip, a growing sense of foreboding began to permeate the hearts and minds of the conquered. For the kindness and cooperation that had once defined the Deathworlders had been replaced by a cold, unyielding determination, a willingness to sacrifice even their own allies in the pursuit of absolute power. The galaxy, once a beacon of unity and progress, had been forever transformed, and in the shadows, a desperate hope remained. The belief that one day, the kindness that had once defined the humans might be rekindled, and the galaxy might be restored to its former glory. The once vibrant and prosperous galaxy had been irrevocably transformed under the oppressive rule of the human dominion. The former members of the Galactic Council, now reduced to mere vassals, found themselves struggling to come to terms with the harsh realities of their new circumstances. Gone were the days of free exchange and mutual cooperation. The human overlords had swiftly imposed a rigid system of control, stifling the individuality and cultural identity of the conquered species. Strict regulations governed every aspect of life, from trade and commerce to scientific research and artistic expression. Shrez, the former Andorian representative, paced the confines of his now restricted quarters, his antennae twitching with a mixture of frustration and resignation. "We were fools to have placed our trust in the Deathworlders," he muttered, his voice laced with bitterness. "Their kindness was nothing more than a facade, a means to an end, and now we are all paying the price for our naivety." The Voth Empress, her reptilian features etched with a profound sense of sorrow, stood silently by the window, her gaze fixed upon the distant stars. "I cannot help but wonder, Shrez, if there might have been a way to avert this tragedy. Perhaps, had we been more vigilant, more unyielding in our resolve, we could have prevented the humans from seizing control." Shrez let out a humorless laugh. "Vigilant, unyielding. Forgive me, Empress, but we were none of those things. We basked in the false security of our peace, lulled into complacency by the very kindness that now binds us to the human's will." The Empress nodded, her expression somber. "And so, we find ourselves trapped in a gilded cage of our own making, our once vibrant cultures fading into shadows of their former selves." Across the galaxy, the conquered species struggled to adapt to their new reality, their lives now dictated by the relentless demands of the human dominion. Creativity and individuality were stifled, replaced by a rigid conformity that stripped away the very essence of their identities. In the bustling metropolis that had once been the Andorian cultural center, Shrez's daughter, Asara, watched with a heavy heart as the once vibrant streets gave way to a sea of drab, uniform buildings. The lively public gatherings and artistic performances that had once filled the air with a sense of joy and wonder had been replaced by carefully orchestrated displays of human-approved propaganda. "It's as if the very soul of our people has been torn away," Asara murmured, her eyes brimming with tears. "The humans have taken everything from us. Our freedom, our identity, our hope." She turned to her father, her expression etched with a desperate determination. "But we cannot simply accept this fate, Father. Surely there must be a way to resist, to reclaim what is rightfully ours." Shrez reached out, gently placing a hand on his daughter's shoulder. "I understand your desire to fight, Asara, but you must understand the gravity of the situation we now face. The humans have proven themselves to be ruthless and uncompromising in the face of dissent. Any attempt at resistance would be crushed without hesitation." Asara's brow furrowed, her jaw set with a stubborn resolve. "Then so be it, Father. I would rather die fighting for our freedom than live as a mere shadow of myself, trapped under the humans' oppressive rule." Shrez sighed, his expression heavy with the weight of his own resignation. "I know, my dear, and I admire your courage, but I fear that to take such a stance would only invite further tragedy upon our people. We must bide our time, look for any opportunity to undermine the humans' control without risking open confrontation." Asara's shoulders slumped, the fire in her eyes dimming ever so slightly. "And how long must we wait, Father? How long before the last vestiges of our culture are erased, our very identity reduced to nothing more than a faint memory?" Shrez pulled his daughter into a tight embrace, his own eyes glistening with unused tears. "I wish I had an answer, Asara. But for now, All we can do is hold on to the hope that one day the humans' kindness and cooperation will be rekindled, that they will remember the bonds we once shared, and return our galaxy to the path of unity and progress. As Sarah clung to her father, her resolve wavering in the face of the grim reality that now surrounded them. The galaxy they had once known, a vibrant tapestry of diverse cultures and shared prosperity, had been reduced to a bleak and oppressive landscape, its future uncertain and shrouded in darkness. And as the days turned to weeks, and the weeks to months, the whispers of resistance began to take root, flickering like a fragile flame in the shadows of the human dominion's unyielding control. For deep within the hearts of the conquered species, a glimmer of hope remained, the belief that one day the Deathworlders might remember the kindness that had once defined them, and that the galaxy might be restored to its former glory. But until that day came, the bittersweet legacy of the humans' rise to power would linger, a constant reminder of the price that had been paid for their victory. A victory that had come at the cost of the very unity and cooperation they had once championed.